My son spoke for the first time at 5 years old, and what he said brought me to my knees in the kitchen. I married Erin when we were both 26. She was this radiant, driven woman, charming in public, razor-sharp in business, and always the center of attention. I was quieter, more grounded. I taught high school biology, loved slow mornings, jazz, and the smell of rain. We were opposites, but it worked, at first. When our son, Caleb, was born, something shifted. Not with me, I fell in love the moment I saw him. But Erin? She started pulling away. At first, I thought it was postpartum. I gave her space, handled feedings at 2 a.m., did the laundry, the dishes, everything really. You're such a good dad, people would say, but no one realized it wasn't a choice. I had to be. Erin wasn't there. Not really. When Caleb missed his first milestones, I didn't panic. Kids develop at their own pace, I told myself. But by his 3rd birthday, he still hadn't said a word. No, Dada, no, Mama, nothing. Erin didn't handle it well. You're babying him too much, she'd snap, flipping through her phone, barely glancing up. He needs discipline. Maybe if you weren't so soft. We tried therapy. Speech, occupational, developmental. I went to every session. Erin came to a few in the beginning, then stopped. Always work. Always some conference, some networking event, some excuse. I stopped asking. She stopped pretending. Meanwhile, Caleb and I formed our own little world. We had signs, smiles, inside jokes that didn't need words. He tugged my sleeve when he wanted to draw, and I'd drop everything. We'd sit for hours coloring dragons and rocket ships. I became fluent in his silence, learned to read his moods like weather. And still nothing. Not a single word. The therapist said he might never speak. I nodded, swallowed the lump in my throat, and hugged him tighter. Erin didn't say anything. She just started staying out later, coming home with perfume I didn't recognize and lipstick that had been long kissed off. One night, she came home after midnight. Caleb had been sick with a fever, curled in my lap on the couch as I tried to keep his temperature down. She walked in, glanced at him, and asked, "Why isn't he in bed?" I didn't answer. I just kissed his damp forehead and kept rocking. We stopped pretending after that. I slept on the floor of Caleb's room more nights than I care to admit. Erin and I barely spoke unless it was about bills or logistics. She'd be gone most weekends now, spa days, girls' retreats, work trips. She always had a bag packed by the door. And I stayed. For Caleb. I stayed because he needed me. Because I thought maybe one day she'd come back. Maybe one day she'd look at him and see the magic I saw. That day never came. But another day did. A few months ago, Caleb turned 5. We were in the kitchen. I was cooking spaghetti, his favorite, even though he'd never said so. I just knew from the way he'd light up when I stirred the sauce. He was sitting at the table with his crayons, drawing something I couldn't quite make out. I turned away to drain the pasta and I heard him make a noise behind me like a cough or a word caught in his throat. Then, clear as day, I heard it. He kisses Mommy in the car. I froze. The colander clattered into the sink. What did you say, buddy? I whispered, turning slowly. He didn't look up from his drawing. Just calmly repeated it. He kisses Mommy in the car. My knees buckled. I sank onto the floor, my back against the cabinet, staring at him as he scribbled on like nothing happened. His voice was soft, steady. He hadn't just learned to talk. He'd been choosing not to. And now he had something to say. I asked, "Who, Caleb? Who kisses Mommy?" He looked up then, eyes wide and honest. "The man with the watch. He gives me gum." My heart stopped. He'd spoken 8 words. 8 words that shattered the last illusion I was holding onto. The silence had finally broken, and what came through was a truth so sharp, so brutal, it ripped through me like glass. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just stood up, spoon still in my hand, and walked over to him. "Did you see them together today?" I asked, somehow keeping my voice calm. He nodded. "Where?" "By the school. In the red car." Erin drives a black SUV. The red car was not hers. I barely remember the rest of that night. I put Caleb to bed, holding him longer than usual, my hands trembling as I tucked the blanket around him. I sat in the dark afterward for hours, listening to the hum of the fridge and the echo of his voice. He kisses Mommy in the car. Tomorrow I'd check. Tomorrow I'd dig. Tomorrow I'd find out just how deep the rot went. But tonight? Tonight I broke. On the cold tile floor of my kitchen, alone except for the sound of the rain beginning to fall outside the window, I let myself cry. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay on the couch with a blanket over me, staring at the ceiling fan spinning in slow, mocking circles. Caleb's words kept replaying in my head on a loop. He kisses Mommy in the car. 8 words. 8 razor blades. By the time the sun came up, I had a plan. I dropped Caleb off at his therapy appointment like I always did. Erin never came to those anymore, not even for evaluations. Too busy. That's what she said the last time I asked. While Caleb was with his therapist, I sat in the parking lot with my phone in my lap, scrolling through our cell phone records. It was something I had never done before because I trusted her. God, I trusted her so much it hurts to admit now. But now? I was done playing the fool. One number stood out immediately. Dozens of calls and texts. Sometimes late at night. Sometimes midday. A few on weekends when she claimed she was out getting air. I punched the number into a search engine. It didn't take long. It belonged to a guy named Brett. One of the dads from Caleb's preschool class. Divorced. Drives a red Audi. I remembered him now, tan, overly friendly, always flashing a watch that screamed midlife crisis. I stared at the screen, bile rising in my throat. When I picked Caleb up, I asked him more questions in the car, as gently as I could. Do you see the man with the watch a lot? Caleb nodded. Does mommy take you to see him? Another nod. Do they talk? Sometimes they laugh, he said. Sometimes they kiss. One time I had to sit in the back while they did private talk. I pulled over and vomited into the grass. I kept thinking, how long? How long had this been going on? Had she been seeing him when Caleb was still nonverbal? While I was holding down everything at home, had she been playing house with someone else? That night I waited for her. She came home just after 10 p.m., hair curled, makeup freshly reapplied, heels in hand like she'd been out dancing. She didn't see me sitting in the dark in the living room. When I flicked on the light, she jumped. Jesus, you scared me, she said. Where were you? I asked. Out. With Hannah. I stood and walked over to her. I looked her right in the eyes. Is Brett Hannah's new name? The blood drained from her face. What are you talking about? She snapped, instantly going defensive. You know exactly what I'm talking about. She crossed her arms. Are you seriously checking up on me now? Snooping through my stuff. Caleb spoke. That shut her up. For the first time in 5 years, I saw actual shock in her eyes. What? He spoke, I said, my voice breaking. His first words. And you know what they were? She didn't answer. He kisses mommy in the car. Silence. Then that's not, he doesn't understand what he's saying. Don't, I said. My voice cracked, but I held my ground. Don't you dare lie to me. Not after everything. She took a shaky breath, arms still crossed like they were the only thing holding her up. It's not what you think, she said finally. No? You're not seeing Brett from Caleb's school. I mean, we're friends. Friends who kiss? Friends who have private talk while our son sits in the back seat. Her jaw clenched. You don't get it, okay? I've been miserable for years. You're so obsessed with Caleb, you stopped being a husband a long time ago. My ears were ringing. So this is my fault? I didn't say that. You implied it loud and clear. She turned her back to me, storming toward the kitchen. You don't know what it's like. Being stuck here with a kid who doesn't talk, a husband who acts more like a nurse. I followed her. Stuck here? You mean your own son? She whirled around. Don't make this about him. You've always had this fantasy that we'd be some perfect little family, and when things got hard, you smothered him and forgot me. There it was. The cruelty. The selfishness laid bare. You disappeared, I said quietly. Every day. Every therapy session. Every meltdown, every night terror. You weren't here. You didn't even try. She didn't respond. I could see in her face that she knew it was true and she hated me for saying it out loud. I left her there, standing in the kitchen in silence. Went into Caleb's room. Watched him sleep with his hand curled around his stuffed bear. I felt like my heart had been ripped in half. All those years. All that love. I poured myself into this family while she poured herself into someone else. And the worst part? It was my son, my beautiful, quiet, watchful boy who finally gave me the truth. The next morning I didn't speak to Erin. I just got Caleb ready, packed his lunch, and drove him to school like it was any other day. Except it wasn't. Not after what he said. Not after her reaction. I was running on autopilot, but inside I was unraveling. I felt like a ghost in my own life, moving through the motions but detached from everything. My hands were shaking at stoplights. My heart wouldn't stop racing. I couldn't keep food down. But I knew what I had to do. I needed proof. Because part of me, some pathetic, loyal part, still needed to be sure. Still wanted to catch her in a lie she couldn't twist, minimize, or talk her way around. So I started digging. First, I made copies of our phone records. Not just the number to Brett, but the times, the patterns. I noticed they talked before every girls' trip. Every spa weekend. Sometimes on the same days I stayed home with Caleb while he was sick. Then I checked our shared calendar. Erin had logged work retreats every few weeks, most of them over weekends. She'd even added fake conferences in cities she never went to. I cross-checked those dates with Caleb's school drop-offs and pickups. She wasn't even around to lie properly. She left her digital footprints like breadcrumbs. That night, after Caleb was asleep, I pulled our nanny cam out of the closet. We hadn't used it in over a year. Erin hated it, said it was invasive, said it made her feel like she was being watched. I told her it was for safety. For emergencies. I set it up again while she was in the shower. Angled just right in the living room tucked behind a plant. She never even noticed it. The next weekend, she said she was going to a leadership seminar. I just nodded. Told her to have fun. She left Friday afternoon with a suitcase and her laptop bag. Kissed Caleb on the head. Didn't say a word to me. Then she climbed into a red Audi that pulled up at the end of our driveway. I watched through the blinds. I saw her kiss him, quick, familiar, practiced. And then they drove off. The next day, I reviewed the footage. Later that evening, while Caleb and I were watching a cartoon, Brett came into my home. My home. He didn't even knock. Used a key. I froze, staring at the screen as he strolled in with a bottle of wine and Erin on his heels, laughing. They made themselves at home like they'd done it 100 times. And maybe they had. They sat on our couch. Drank wine from our glasses. She curled up on his lap. He kissed her neck. They talked about next time. About taking a trip together. About Caleb not talking so he won't remember anyway. My blood turned to ice. It wasn't just betrayal. It was contempt. I saved the footage. Backed it up in 2 places. Printed the phone records. Made copies of her fake calendar entries. I even dug through old photos from Caleb's tablet. Found a few selfies he'd accidentally taken, blurry, but Brett's red car was in the background of 2. One showed Erin in the passenger seat. He'd been right there the whole time. Hiding in plain sight. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table until the sun came up, surrounded by stacks of paper, screenshots, and printed lies. When Erin came back Sunday night, she walked in like nothing had happened. Smiling. Wearing the same clothes from Friday. Hey, she said casually. How was your weekend? I didn't answer. I just slid the envelope across the table. She looked confused. Opened it. And her entire face drained of color. What is this? You tell me. She stared at the pages, lips parting, trying to form some kind of defense. But there was nothing she could say. I know about Brett. I know everything. This is crazy. No. What's crazy is that you brought that man into my house. You gave him a key? You let him sit on the same couch where our son curls up to watch movies. Her voice trembled. You're spying on me? I was trying to survive you. She flinched like I hit her. I stood up, shaking. For years I've been holding this family together while you've been playing dress-up with some divorced dad from preschool. For years I've been loving our son, alone, while you looked me in the eyes and lied to my face. Her hands were trembling now too. We weren't happy. You know we weren't. No, I said. You weren't happy. Caleb and I? We were fine. We had each other. You just didn't want to be part of that. She was quiet for a long time. Then finally she whispered, I didn't think he understood. I laughed bitterly. He understood more than either of us. He's the one who told me. That broke her. She crumbled into a chair, buried her face in her hands. Started sobbing. But I didn't move to comfort her. Not this time. I was done playing the fool. I was done letting her pain take priority over mine. I said one last thing before I left the room. You didn't just lose me tonight. You lost the right to pretend you were ever trying. The next few days were a blur of tension and quiet war. Erin tried to act like things weren't falling apart. She stayed in the house, floating around like a ghost, making empty gestures like cooking breakfast she didn't know how to cook or offering to read Caleb a book she hadn't touched in years. He wouldn't even go near her. He stuck to me like glue. Every night, he fell asleep with one arm around my neck. Every night, I watched him breathe and promised him he would never be in the dark again. On the 4th day, Erin finally broke the silence. I was sitting on the couch with Caleb curled up next to me watching Finding Nemo. Erin stood in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes wild. We need to talk, she said. I muted the TV. Caleb, go play in your room for a bit, buddy. I'll come in soon. He nodded, kissed my cheek, and ran off. I turned to her. Say what you need to say. She stared at me like I was a stranger. So that's it? You're just going to what? Leave me? Destroy everything? I didn't even blink. You destroyed it. I just finally opened my eyes. You're overreacting. Don't, I snapped, my voice rising. Don't gaslight me. I have video, Erin. I have recordings of you letting that man into our house. Kissing him in our living room. You were already gone. Emotionally, physically. You've been gone for a long time. You don't understand, I understand perfectly. I was here every single day picking up the pieces while you disappeared into lies. I was there when our son couldn't speak. I was there through every diagnosis, every doctor's appointment, every moment of fear and heartbreak. You weren't. She looked like she wanted to cry. But nothing came. I didn't sign up for this, she said finally. Quiet. Cold. My stomach turned. This? I asked. What's this, Aaron? A child who might never be normal. A husband who stopped being fun. A life that became a prison. There it was. The real her. The mask finally slipped. I stood up slowly, my body trembling with rage. You don't get to use Caleb as your excuse for your affair. For abandoning your family. For treating us like weights around your ankle. She scoffed. Oh, come on, you're not perfect. You're no saint. You worship that kid. You make everything about him. You act like you're some martyr, but maybe if you put half that energy into me. I gave you everything I had. My voice cracked, raw and full of the ache I'd carried for years. Even when you stopped loving us. Even when you stopped trying. I stayed. For him. She shook her head and laughed bitterly. You really think you're the hero in this? No. I think I was the only one not lying. Silence. And then she went low. If you think you're taking Caleb from me, you're insane. That hit harder than anything else. Because she didn't want him. Not really. Not as a mother. She wanted control. Optics. Leverage. I walked right up to her and said, if this goes to court, I have footage, witnesses, phone records, Caleb's own therapist who knows I've been the only consistent parent. I'm not afraid to fight. She glared at me. He's my son too. I almost laughed. You just said he wasn't what you signed up for. She opened her mouth to argue, but there was nothing she could say that didn't damn her further. I told her I'd be filing for divorce that week. Told her I wanted full custody, and I meant it. That she could see Caleb, but on terms that protected him from her selfishness and instability. That night, she left. Packed 2 suitcases and walked out without even saying goodbye to Caleb. I told him she was going on a trip. He looked at me, wide-eyed, and asked, is it with the gum man? I nodded slowly. He said nothing. Just climbed into my lap and whispered, I want to stay with you. The next few days were strangely peaceful. Painful, yes, but calm. Like a storm had passed and the wreckage had settled. I contacted a family law attorney, set everything in motion. Filed for emergency temporary custody. Submitted everything I'd gathered. When Aaron's lawyer called me to negotiate visitation, I sent them a curated folder of video clips and phone logs. Suddenly, Aaron wasn't so aggressive. She offered shared custody. I declined. I wasn't trying to be cruel. But I couldn't risk Caleb living in a house where he'd be ignored again. Where his first words, the ones he held back for 5 years, would be dismissed as a child's confusion. This was about more than revenge. It was about protection. It was about rebuilding from the truth. The days turned into weeks and every one of them burned. Erin didn't come crawling back like I thought she might. No begging. No real apology. What she did instead? She started telling people I was unstable. That I was using Caleb's condition to isolate her, to make her look like a bad mother. That I was emotionally abusive and had manipulated our son into lying. Yeah. She called our 5-year-old a liar. The same boy she ignored, neglected, and disappeared from. Now suddenly he was a little Machiavellian mastermind in her story. I only found out because her sister, who never really liked me, by the way, reached out and said, I don't know what's going on, but I think you should know what she's saying about you. I wasn't surprised. Erin was never one to accept consequences. She rewrote reality in her head and expected everyone else to read from her script. I didn't play along. I stayed quiet. I focused on Caleb. On his progress, on his safety, on healing. He started talking more slow, careful phrases. Mostly to me. He was still scared of people, especially adults he didn't know. But his voice came easier now. One night, he crawled into my bed after a nightmare, curled up next to me and whispered, You're the only one who hears me. I didn't cry in front of him. I waited until he was asleep and then buried my face in the pillow and sobbed like a child. We started building routines. Morning walks. Saturday pancakes. I taught him how to stir the batter. We went to parks where no one knew us. I found a speech therapist who made him laugh. For the first time in a long, long time, the house started to feel like a home again. Not a haunted one. Erin, meanwhile, was unraveling. I'd get these emails, half threats, half desperation. You can't do this to me. You're destroying our family. He needs his mother. Then the next day, I miss him so much, please just let me FaceTime him. I didn't block her. I let the emails pile up, filed every single one in a folder for court. Let her hang herself with her own rope. Then she did something even I didn't expect. She showed up at Caleb's school. Unannounced. Uninvited. I got a call from the office that Ms. Thompson was trying to sign him out. My stomach dropped. I raced over, adrenaline pumping, ready to tear the place apart. She was sitting in the front office, acting like this was all perfectly normal. The principal stood between us. She says she's his mother, she told me quietly. But her name isn't on the emergency contact list. I handed over the court papers. Temporary custody. Legal proof she wasn't allowed unsupervised access. Aaron saw the principal reading them and started yelling. This is my son. He's being brainwashed. Caleb was in the nurse's office. He'd overheard everything. He didn't want to come out. When I finally got him home, he asked if Mommy was going to take him away. My heart broke into pieces. No, buddy, I said. No one's taking you anywhere. You're safe. I promise. And I meant it with everything I had. After that, I filed for a restraining order. My attorney said the school incident was more than enough. Aaron's lawyer tried to argue that it was a misunderstanding. Sure. Just like all her weekend trips and lipstick-stained lies. The judge sided with me. Supervised visitation only pending a full custody hearing. Aaron screamed in court. Said I was painting her like a villain. She didn't even realize she wasn't being painted. She was just finally being seen. That night, I sat with Caleb as he colored. He drew us in crayon, stick figures holding hands. He even drew a speech bubble next to himself. Look, he said, smiling. That's me. Talking. I couldn't speak. I just nodded, kissed the top of his head, and whispered, "You're so brave." Because he was. He'd survived a house where his voice was never heard, and the moment he found it, he saved us both. I still have bad nights. I still look at old pictures and wonder when exactly she stopped loving us. I wonder how I didn't see it sooner. But regret is just a ghost now, haunting but powerless. Anger kept me standing. But Caleb's voice gave me direction. This boy, who didn't speak for 5 years, said one sentence and set fire to my whole world. And thank God he did. Because I was dying in that silence. Both of us were. I'm rebuilding now. I'm not the same man I was. There's a hardness to me that wasn't there before. But there's also a clarity. A sense of who I am. And more importantly, who he is.